this is the Daily Show KE, where I look at the issues of the day in Kenya and around the world. So I look at the top issues of the day in Kenya and around the world. So welcome to this show where I look now. One of the top stories, of course, is Eric Latiff leaving Spice FM. Eric Latiff leaving Spice FM for Nation FM. So basically, Eric Latiff has been the face of urban radio in Kenya, and now he left Spice FM to go to Nation FM. Remember, Nation FM had been closed down, and then it is rebranding. So it had been closed down between 2016 to 2021. Apparently, they had this idea at first, and that is the Situation Room. And Nation FM had that idea at first, but of course, as with every idea, it's about the execution. It's not about the idea itself. It's about the execution. So Nation FM did not execute that idea very well. So basically, I think they brought in some PhD candidates to be able to anchor that show on what on the deep issues of the day. But then, of course, to be a commentator to be a commentator for 4 hours, you really need to be very knowledgeable. You need to have a lot of grounding in a lot of disciplines. You need to have a lot of general knowledge. Look at the kinds of Dan Bongino of Talk Radio 101 in America, or David Kilmade, or Brian Kilmade, or maybe even Brian Russell. So these are people, commentators basically are people that need to have a lot of information, and maybe that's the future of urban radio, because remember, a lot of news is broken by social media. So why are we tuning to news from the radio? Then of course, remember, you can't live stream music. You can live stream music that is from Spotify, from Boommark, AudioMark, from Boomplay. You can't live stream music, and so basically, then urban radio remains about commentating, and that is why the future of urban radio, I think, is in. I think the future of urban radio is in commentating. So basically, a Nation FM has that idea at first. So basically, they brought in some PhD fellows to be able to commentate on the top issues of the day. But then maybe they looked at academic credentials and not really whether you are knowledgeable in one discipline or another. So that's how then Nation FM crumbled. They brought in Jimmy Galt, I think, in the morning. They brought in was it Angela Ngweni in the morning. So basically, Nation FM tried that, but I think it crumbled. So then they did not. They abandoned that idea. So they closed down the station. The new CEO, Steve Gitagama, now Eric Latiff, is going to be the anchor of news on. Is going to be the anchor of news. And talk show on Nation FM. So will he revive the fortunes? But he did not come with the other co-host, that is Ndo Oko, and I think CT Mug. I think they did not follow him. Usually, when you poach a whole squad, you some presenters usually poach a whole squad. Look at the way Mbusi and Lion in I think Radio Jambo were poached from Ghetto Radio. Mbusi and Lion basically plus the DJ. They came in with the whole squad. I think they say Mbusi is paid about 600,000. So of course, that then shows maybe then the question that a lot of Kenyans are asking: why is the same talent being rotated? It seems the rush for profits. No one wants to try out new talent, and that's the problem we have. No one wants to try out new talent. It's just the same faces that are going around these media stations. No one wants to risk with new talent. I think when you go to work for one of these stations, they ask you, have you worked in radio before? So that's why, if you have not worked, then do you have a public profile that people can follow? If you have not worked on radio, then they ask you, can you have a public persona that can attract an audience? Remember, a lot of radio presenters are paid very much highly so that they can attract an audience, a shrinking audience, I should say, so that they can attract an audience to that. So then they will be able to pitch that number to advertisers. So that's the business model of radio. Basically, try and get a public persona, and so then people follow him, listen to him. Look at Jeff Koinange at Hot 96. Basically, he is basically the one who is driving that station alone. Maybe with the coming of Aziza Hashim, and of course, as the media messiah, maybe things might change. But then you have the market for radio presenters is basically you must have a public persona so that then they will train you, and they will train you on what you need to do. So that's about regurgitating, and maybe for standard group, then it finds itself in a very bad place where it's having to train talent, but then that talent usually leaves after just a few years to be poached by the likes of Citizen TV. And just 10 years ago, Citizen TV wasn't an entity, and I think what made Citizen TV come along was basically the introduction of these programs, local programming, basically where they came up with the likes of Papa Chandler, Papa Chandler, Inspector Mwala, and I think the big one at that, that is Tidy High. Tidy High School drama is what made that is Citizen TV, and of course we cannot forget the Nigerian movies that used to be played immediately after the morning show. So basically, and that is what brought Citizen TV to the limelight. Of course, I don't have quite the profitability of Citizen TV. It's a private company, but I think it could gross revenues of even up to 1 billion shillings. But then, of course, you have I think you have Citizen TV having such high numbers. But then Standard Media Group, what's happening at the Standard Media Group? I really think that it ought to maybe have more presenters. It ought to have maybe pay better salaries. Without better salaries, that Moi family our company will not go anywhere. Why are they not paying salaries? And they are low salaries, and even those salaries are being delayed. So then, very much, it's going to be it's going to be a very tricky situation for Standard Media Group. The revenues are dropping. They tried 24-hour news programming. K24 tried that, but it did not work out. So I think, but I think the future of mainstream media in general is in turmoil. The future of mainstream media is in peril. I think social media is eating into the profitability of mainstream media, because remember, advertisers have flocked online. So basically, the budgets are not as high as they were because advertisers have streamed to such platforms as TikTok, YouTube, and maybe Google, and so they are going there. That's where they are going, and so basically we are going to be having a splintered market, and this is why I say that we must be able to know what really will happen to mainstream media. I think the former CEO of Nation Media Group, that is Linus Gitahi, the former CEO of Nation Media Group, Linus Gitahi, said that we must, that is basically media houses should be selling insights and not news, because news has already been broken. Now, what will await, I think, course, the purpose of mainstream media is now just to the purpose of mainstream media is now just to confirm the news, but it is social media. You can't find all sorts of experts on X. You can't find all sorts of experts on X. But then the question remains: will they be able? And the question remains: will mainstream media survive? Because the media market is now, and that's why. And then there's a problem. So, and it's not just a Kenyan problem; it's a worldwide problem. Even in America, CNN had 2 million plus during its prime time. Now it's just about 600,000 during prime time, and so that shows you that basically mainstream media is splintering. And I think it's going to take a long while. It's going to take a long while before mainstream media is able to catch up with social media. So I think the death of classified advertising is what really made mainstream media. And of course, then a lot of people have watched this content on social media. So it's going to be, let's see whether Eric Latiff will Let's see whether Eric Latiff will come up with a new bargain plan. So then, another top story that we are looking at is Jeridah Andayi, the former radio presenter at Citizen TV. Her family, she and her husband, I think the family relocated to America. So is it such a good thing to relocate to America? She had such a good job at Radio Citizen. She was the head of Radio Citizen. She was the head of the Radio Citizen. I don't know quite the salary she was being paid, but of course, I think it's more than 500,000. So basically, she was the head of Radio Citizen. So basically, a lot of people are wondering why leave a good job in Kenya and then relocate. Maybe it's the decision of the husband to relocate abroad. And I think the husband is a doctor of some sort. I'm not quite sure because he's not a public figure. So Jeridah and I relocated with his kids. I think Victor was already in the US. He's a football player. And then, of course, the other kids, Nema and Nora Zawadi, they relocated to America. So basically, they have started a new life. So is it such a good thing to relocate at when you are mature, when you already have a family? But maybe the husband got a good deal, and maybe then it was upon Jeridah and I to follow her husband. But I think maybe they could have tried until maybe Nema goes reaches I think reaches high school, because she seems not to like the atmosphere in the US. I think for Nora Zawadi, I think she quite likes the school in America, because at Alliance, she was at Alliance Girls. That is Nora Zawadi. She was at Alliance Girls. And I think at Alliance Girls they used to wake up at maybe at 4 a.m. So she doesn't she didn't quite like that, waking up at 4 a.m. So I think, what do you think about Jeridah and I and the family relocating to America? So that's it. And then, of course, another story you're following is the release of the KCSE results. So the KCSE results were released in the KCSE results were released basically in I think last week. So basically 246,000 students qualified to join university. That's 246,000 students qualified to join university. So what next for them? We are training a lot of students. We are training a lot of students, and so basically where will they get jobs? Maybe that's the question we need to ask. Where will they get jobs? When they don't get jobs, then it becomes worse. Parents are expecting, when I educate my kid, at least they will be able to the notion that children are your retirement plan, I think that went out of the window. But I think most parents are proud when a child can support themselves by their own 2 feet. But then this we have over 246,000 students got the minimum university entry grade over C plus. That's over 246,000 students got the minimum university entry grade over C plus. So where are these other students going to go? So basically, we had and basically, I think we had 246,000 students qualifying to join university. So basically, where will they get the jobs? We should be prioritizing job creation. Basically, we are not creating enough clean, decent yarding jobs, and that's where the government must come in, create an enabling environment so that people can, businesses can prosper. In short, just increase the tax bracket. Don't overtax people, increase the tax bracket. I think a lot of businesses are shutting down in the country. That's just it. A lot of businesses are shutting down in the country, and the reason for that is because of the high cost of doing business in the country. That's why a lot of these businesses are shutting down. And so I think really what must be followed through is just to and what must be followed through is to enable is to enable these Form 4 leavers to be able to get good jobs. That's how we will be able to have our people remaining. Look at the kind of job exports they are doing in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar. Yes, it's good. They are looking for jobs. But we've had horror stories in Saudi Arabia of Kenyans really going to be stressed out in Saudi Arabia. We've heard stories of Kenyans being killed returning in coffins from Saudi Arabia. So basically, why then are we going? Are we taking our children to those countries? So it appears we have now joined the likes of Philippines, whose one of the economic foundations is to export labor. So now Kenya is going to export a lot of labor to overseas markets, and so basically that says a lot about us and our need for job creation. So that means these people, I think now even PhDs have no jobs in Kenya. It's not just now those who have bachelor's degrees, even the masters and PhD students, graduates also have no jobs. So it's going to be like Kenya is going to be like Nigeria. In Nigeria, doctors are bus drivers, engineers are selling eggs on the streets. That's the way it is going to be. Basically, because our people, really, our leaders didn't plan for this. They are just stealing, and you can imagine someone you can imagine that these kids are watching a politician amassing billions when they have not produced any wealth at all. These people are watching a politician amassing billions when they have not created any product or service. And this is why I say the problem then with Africa is that the way to get money and the way to be rich in Africa is to be close to power. It is not by your creative genius trick, it is not by ingenuity, it is not by hard work, it is not by talent, it is basically not by rare skill. The way to get rich in Kenya is to be close to power, then you can steal as much money as possible. And that's what makes people to be discouraged, because they have tried everything but they are not succeeding. So basically, we shouldn't be doing that. I just think this thing needs to go away. We need to be able to create the right kind of atmosphere so that our people can really succeed right here in the country. And I think another thing about the KCSE results is that the top brains have set their sights on studying abroad. That is, the top brains in the KCSE results have set their eyes on studying abroad. So the top brains have set their eyes on Ivy League colleges in America, universities such as Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, Stanford, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Those are the Williams College. Those are the kind of universities our KCSE stars, that is the high school exit exam in Kenya, if you are not familiar. Those are the kind of universities our top brains want to attend. So basically, our top brains have set their eyes on studying in the country. And so, what does that mean? What really does that mean? I just think that basically right now we are producing brains that that all want to go out. Remember, universities such as Harvard has an endowment fund of about $53 billion. A university such as Harvard has an endowment fund of about $53 billion. So that means they have enough money to be able to skim talent from whichever corner of the world they want. So a university such as Howard has enough money to be able to skim talent from whichever corner of the world it wants. So that's how America remains to be at the absolute bleeding edge of innovation. That's just how America remains to be at the absolute bleeding edge of innovation. But then our Kenyan our Kenyan, our African top brains really live really live to work overseas, to study and work overseas. I think according to a report, there are about 40,000 African PhDs that work outside of Africa. There are at least 40,000 PhDs, African PhDs that work outside of Africa, but at the same time, there are about 100,000 Western expatriates that work in Kenya. So basically, we are overpaying Western expatriates and underpaying our people. Why not use this money from Western expatriates to be able to pay our people better? And I think if we paid our people better, then it will very much reflect in that they will be staying at home. I think our universities have become really just elevated high schools. Basically, there's not much that is going on in our universities except just teaching. There is no research that is basically taking place in our universities. It is just teaching, and I think we are not producing new knowledge and research. That's why then knowledge imperialism takes over. I think the World Bank advised African countries that basically don't concentrate on higher education, concentrate on basic education. That is, higher education is not a priority for African governments. Higher education is not a priority for African governments. So they concentrated on basic education. So that means we don't get to produce new knowledge, and that's dangerous for our country. Of course, a lot of people say you cannot be pursuing ivory tower research ideas in universities when you have hungry people. But then remember that things such as the internet, they came along because people the internet came along because people, intellectuals engaged in research. Look at someone like Tim Berners-Lee, who helped co-invent, who invented that is the World Wide Web, that is the hypertext markup language, that is HTML, that is what enabled the internet to be mainstream. But then, of course, it now has produced billions, trillions of words. So basically, I'm just saying that we need to empower our intellectuals so that they can stay right here in Africa, so that they can then produce a lot of words. I will do just a small analysis of our top brains. So in 1989, the top student was named Samnakei from the Alliance High School. So he went to that is he went to Australia. Now he's a doctor in Australia. Then in 1990, the top student was Fred Weather. 1990, the top student was Fred Weather from that is from Starehe Center, Boys Center. He went to he went to the US. He's now a doctor there. 1991, one of the top students was Humphrey Watanga. He went to I think Harvard University to pursue a degree in biochemistry, but came back. He is now a Commissioner General with KRA. Then in 1992, the top student was Gilbert Geta from that is Mango High School. He went to the US where he is now a researcher there. Then in 1993, one of the top students was Waneri Washeni Kanyaru, who went to Harvard, is now a financial consultant in the US. And then in 1994, the top student was Kimanya Murithi, who went to Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He is now a computer engineer in the US. Then from Alliance High School in 1995, the top student was one of the top students was James Mwangi. He went to Harvard. Now he is a management consultant at Dalberg. And 1996, one of the top students was Nathaniel Choge. He went to America and now he is a financial consultant in America. In 1997, one of the top student was Mwashuma Nyata. He went to Harvard University and now he is and then became a Rhodes Scholar from the Alliance High School. Then, of course, he is now a medical, he is now a financial consultant with SoftBank. And then in 1998, the top student was Timothy Zairu. He went to Harvard University. He is now a computer engineer at he is now a computer engineer and I think Microsoft. He is one of the Microsoft millionaires that were minted out when Microsoft when Microsoft that is instituted the employee share ownership scheme, which created about 12,000 dollar millionaires. Then in 1999, the top student was Samuel Gikandi, who just a minute. In 1990, in 1999, the top student was Samuel Gikandi from the Alliance High School. He went to Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he worked for Morgan Stanley. Now he is, I think, a board member of Stanbic Bank. He came back, I think, launched Africa's token startup, and then in 2000, the top student was Darti Sampati. from Mango High School, he went to the University of Adelaide. He was the dean's on the dean's list, the best student in his class. So he got a PhD, or maybe he left it underway, and now works for a space defense systems mission. Then in 2001, the top student was Amit Monga from that is Starehe Boys Center. He went to that is McGill University, and of course he is I think now a financial consultant in America. I think he went to the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. And then, of course, in 2002, this one was the only one who studied in the country, Paul Bundi. He went to Kenya High School, and now he is a medical researcher in the country. So that is it now. Basically, that is how these top students fared. Then in 2003, I don't have 2004. In 2005, the top student was James Candiero Teach, who went to that is from Moy School Kabarak, who went to from Moy High School Kabarak, who went to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology (MIT), and now he is a computer engineer, software engineer at Google. And of course, in 2006, one of the top students was Herman Mutiso. He was one of basically from the Alliance High School. I think one of the top students. I'm not sure whether he was the best student, but one of the top students in 2006 was Herman Mutiso. He went to from Alliance High School. He went to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So in that year, Harvard, that is Herman Mutiso picked both Harvard and MIT. So the following year, they did not select a candidate from Alliance. So it had to take the principal, Christopher Ember, the former principal of Alliance High School. He had to travel all the way to Harvard to reassure Harvard admission officials that Alliance students still prefer Harvard to any other university in the world. So that's it about our top students always going away. They are going to get full scholarships, but they will not use their return tickets. They will stay in those countries and will mint their money in those countries. So basically, so that's it for the top brains. Then another story that came along was the swearing in of Ghanaian President John Mahama. So John Mahama has been sworn in as the Ghanaian president. So basically, he becomes the first African president to hold two non-consecutive terms in office. You have, and that is President John Mahama. I think becomes the first African president to hold two non-consecutive terms. So of course, he led Ghana between 2011 to 2017. Then of course, January 2017. Then having lost elections in 2016 and losing again in 2020, and then he came back and won the elections in 2024. So what is it about elections in Africa? What is it about a country having a stable democracy? I think democracy is not just translating to improved standards of living in the continent. And maybe what next for Africa? It is because our elections are organized around tribe and regions. It is not organized around issues and ideology. That's just the problem we have. Our elections are organized around a tribe and individuals. They're not organized around issues and ideology, and that's the bane of African politics. Basically, when we are going to vote, we say which electoral candidate has the same surname as us, who is our tribesmate. We say they could be bad, but they are one of our own. That's why we get all charlatans in office, and that's why Africa is bleeding, because basically we are electing charlatans to office. They are not working for us. They are not solving the deep issues of the day, and that is why I guess that's where the train passed us. That's where the rain started beating us, because we are electing people that really have no bearing on the future of Africa. They are not interested in what our people are going to do. They are not interested on improving our livelihoods. They are not interested on finding the solutions to the deepest challenges that face Africans, and that is why I tend to think that we have absolute challenges. And I think African really the people who could bring Africa into the limelight. So African leadership, I think, is just in a quagmire. So you have either a leader is a peasant, is a populist, so basically engages with the peasant, connects emotionally with the peasant, but they don't have economic means, so they don't have economic ability, so they don't keep their people out of poverty. And that's number one kind of a leader in Africa, populist. So basically, they don't have the economic ability to lift their people out of poverty, so they are worshipped, yes, but they don't have that economic ability to lift their people out of poverty. Then the second misnomer in our leadership. Number two, you have an African leader that is basically you have an African leader that is basically a systems technocrat. So you have technocrats with the brains to solve all of Africa's problems. You have an African leader who is a systems technocrat with the brains to solve all of African problems. But then they don't emotionally connect to the citizenry. They don't emotionally connect to the peasants, so they don't get elected, uh, and that is how Africans' a miracle story becomes a deferred dream. That's how Africa's miracle story becomes a deferred dream. And then thirdly, you have an African leader that basically is the opposite polarity leader, treating the peasant and the king, treating the peasant and the king treating the king the same way they would treat the vegetable seller, but then they never reach the big stage. So they are basically just the chairman of the school building committee, the chairperson of the wedding committee or the funeral committee. They never to get to reach the big stage, so they are muted just when they are about to blossom. So that's the anomaly we have in African leadership. So basically, hopefully, Ghana will put itself in order. Yes, it's had stable democracy, but has that democracy translated to people having money in their pockets, to putting people having 3 square meals in a day, to people having clean, decent, rewarding jobs? It has not translated to that, and that's why then Africa is basically limping because we don't have focused leadership. Africa's greatest challenge is that of leadership. I can assure you that Africa's greatest challenge is that of our leadership, and that has to do with our democracy. So, of course, it's a chicken and egg issue on whether democracy leads to sustained economic growth or whether sustained economic growth leads to a better democracy. But I think studies have shown that is outside of the West, democracy has not worked. Why? Because studies show that basically you need at least $10,000. You need at least $10,000, that is, you need at least $10,000 per capita in order to have an effective democracy. So that has not happened in much of Africa, and that is why people are still poor, and that is why the political process in Africa then is a pact between the downtrodden, the super rich who provide the funds and the downtrodden poor who enforce the decisions of the super rich. So that's how the middle class is left out of African politics, and I can assure you that this is why the middle class is living out. So the middle class in Africa are constructing their own parallel state of upper middle class careers and small business of maybe doctor and they of a private healthcare, private schools. But then when they get a debilitating disease, that's when they realize that we all along we needed public hospitals and that work quite well. So you can't see why Africa is in such a mess because the middle class has been torn. Look at America. Only until recently are billionaires being elected. But one of the things that made America succeed as a democracy is because the president has always been drawn from the middle class. Look at the way a normal American could start could just air out their issues and say, this is what is America, this is what we need to do, but and then people will fundraise for them. Look at Barack Obama. He was a mere state senator in 2004 when he made that famous speech at the Democratic National Convention, DNC convention. I think it was the candidacy of John Kerry in 2004. He was a state senator in Illinois. That's how he was catapulted to national politics. Basically, people fundraised for him to be president, but we don't have such here. And I can assure you, if African middle class just transferred 1% of the ingenuity they use in managing trillions of shareholder capital, if they transfer just 1% of that ingenuity they use in managing trillions of shareholder capital, then if they transfer that to politics, then Africa would be in a good place. So I think right now, Africa is suffering from a lack of leadership, and that's why then we need to have appropriate strategies on how we can make the African economy. So that's it for now. And now I will move over to another topic that has really been that is another topic that has really been of immense importance. So basically, the crumbling of the African opposition parties. So African opposition parties are crumbling. So that's why I'm saying in Africa, basically, our political parties are mere election vehicles. They're just for winning elections. They are not bastions of ideological thought and opinion. Our political parties are not bastions of ideological thought and opinion. That's why after a party loses an election, it crumbles. Look at PDP in Nigeria. It is hemorrhaging so badly. Look at ODM in Kenya. Look at the opposition parties in Kenya. Look at the opposition parties wherever in Africa. They are basically going under. Why? Because they are not bastions of ideological thought and opinion. They are mere election. They are mere election avenues. That's why I tend to think. That's why I really tend to think that Africa has to do much more in order to in order to be able to have in order to be able to have a country have an Africa that is truly prosperous. So we will be able to that's how we will be able to that is we will be able to manifest our way so that then Africa can grow in leaps and bounds. Then another story, UK MP wants Somaliland to be recognized as a separate country from the larger Somalia. Remember, in 1991, Somaliland broke away from the larger Somalia, and of course, it's a haven of peace and stability. And this UK MP wants Somaliland to be recognized as a separate country, as a sovereign country. So I don't know how that will go, but it's something that we will really be watching out for. And then in ideas, I'll be asking. So basically, everyone when they get a job, they basically want to. Everyone when they get a job, they dream of being a CEO of that company, or maybe rising to the highest echelons of that office. Everyone dreams of rising to the highest echelons of that office. So basically, what does it take to be? What does it take to be? What does it take? That is basically what does it take to occupy the CEO corner office? Number one, and what really comes out strong is that you need to have a credential from an international university with a forbidding entry criteria. That is, you need to have a credential from an international university with a forbidding entry criteria. The likes of Stanford, the likes of Harvard, the likes of MIT, you need to have a credential from those universities and maybe go on to work for these big four auditing and consulting firms, or the MBB, McKinsey, Bain, uh, a BCG, or maybe work for PwC, Deloitte, EY, and of course KPMG. Those are that is how a credential from an international university with a forbidding entry criteria. And then the other thing to be able to get to the CEO corner office, number two, that is be a finance cost cutting guy, because every company at its outset it must make profits. That's just what every company from its outset must be able to do. It must make profits, and so it must be financially viable, and that means then you will be able to, you must know your finances well. That's why a lot of people are going for the MBA. Of course, it is not known whether the MBA really has adds any meaningful management skills. But you can see a lot of professionals are going for the Masters of Business Administration, that is MBA, because they want to increase their chances of being CEOs in a company. So that is it about that is going for the MBA, that is doing the masters in business administration. It is, by the way, it is the most popular postgraduate degree course, that is the masters in business administration. Of course, some people don't believe that it is a proper postgraduate degree. So that's it. And then of course I will be looking at that is I will be looking at another way to get to the CEO top corner office is to basically have an experience in a company's core area of operation, be knowledgeable in the company's core area of operation. So that means starting from the factory floor and then going all the way, climbing all the way to the CEO corner office. They used to be known as the managing directors, and this is where the companies flourished during those days. There was no need for much of advertising, unlike today, where maybe you find that a CEO can simply bypass production process, product quality improvement, and basically just go straight on to uh, uh, out advertising their competition. And so that means then that is the third way. So let me know on what you think. Do let me know on what you think is the fastest way to get to the CEO corner office. And then finally, in American politics, who will be the next leader of the Democratic Party? Who will be the next leader of the Democratic Party? Who do you think will take over from Joe Biden? So now the Democratic Party is in turmoil. How will it groom its next leader? So we will find out on how the Democratic Party will groom its next leader. But I think it really needs to be shown on how the Democratic Party is going to groom its next leader. Now it is in the wilderness, and I think you had Tim Walz, the running mate of Kamala Harris, not believing that they were outvoted by a billionaire, by a venture capitalist. So basically, you had Kamala Harris running on the basis of preserving American democracy. Then you have Donald Trump running on the basis of restoring American economy, and of course clamping down hard on immigration. So basically there will be no cost as to clamping down on illegal immigration. That is what Donald Trump has said. That is, there will be no Donald Trump has said there will be no a cap on the cost of kicking out illegal immigrants. So a lot of illegal immigrants are going to find it hard to be able to stay in America, but it's going to, of course, America has always been the land of immigrants. Immigrants have constantly renewed America. I think a study shows that I think an immigrant is likely by a factor of 3 to 1 compared to a native born American likely to launch a business that will employ Americans. You think of a case of Eric Yuan, the Chinese American Eric Yuan. So he had applied for the US passport a record a record 7 times. He only got it at the eighth attempt. So you can't really see how very much his belief in the promise and potential of America was. So that's immigration was a thorny issue, and Donald Trump was strong on immigration. Of course, remember also there are fears that white Americans are becoming a minority demographic in America. So maybe remember that even though America is welcoming of immigrants, even though immigrants have constantly renewed America, but that the America was purposely made to be a European satellite state. That's how America was made. It was purposely made to be a European satellite state. So even though immigrants constantly renew America, even though immigrants are welcomed in America, but remember it was made purposely to be a European satellite state in which white Anglo-Saxons would call the shots. So basically, so that was how Donald Trump played. Then for Kamala Harris, it is basically that Trump is an imminent danger to American democracy, that he will remove the guardrails that underpin he will remove the constitutional guardrails that underpin American democracy. So in essence, will be a dictator. So Donald Trump becomes the first convicted felon to be elected president in America. Of course, he also is the second president in history and the first since Grover Cleveland in 1892 to win two non-consecutive terms in office. So basically, that's it about making America. So basically, for Democrats, I think they must return to the working class roots. You cannot pander to the billionaire class and at the same time pander to you cannot pander to the billionaire class and at the same time pander to the working class. You have to choose your bed and lay on it. You cannot pander to both classes. And I think Democrats have to return to the working class roots. Look at the labor unions. This time they did not endorse a candidate. The labor unions this time did not endorse a candidate. So what were they did not endorse a candidate, and of course that is seen as a win for Donald Trump. But I think in another sad fact, America is becoming an oligarchy. A lot of billionaires now surround Donald Trump. Look at Elon Musk, the richest man in the world. So is he going to serve the government, or is he going to look for lucrative contracts for his company? That is what then the sad fact about American politics. And I think a lot of African dictators really are happy that Donald Trump is not too squeaky clean. I think they saw it under Obama, and maybe they did not like it under Obama when he could lecture them on following democracy and the rule of law. But they look at Donald Trump, they look at him, they see he is as flawed as them, and then basically just he is as flawed as them. So basically, they figure out they really don't need to be able, they really don't need to they really don't need to be worried at all because Trump is like them, and that's a worrying trend because America has always been the leader of the free world, but when it has internal challenges at home, such as a failing democracy, a collapsing democracy, then you wonder for how long will America continue to be the leader of the free world. So that's it for now. Well, I have looked at several issues, and that's it for now. Until the next time. So this has been the Daily Show KE, where I look at issues in Kenya, in Africa, in America, and around the world, and also look at one idea, then I bring it up to scratch. So bye for now, till the next time. Bye for now.